One of the really powerful aspects of the Hakomi method is mindfulness. And Hakomi, as we talked, is a method that's been around for a long time and has included mindfulness in very specific ways. And mindfulness has become very popular. There's mindfulness meditation, there's mindfulness awareness. We're using mindfulness utilized in psychotherapy quite a bit. And I think there's a particular aspect to Hakomi that might be helpful to peel out a little further. Why does Hakomi bring mindfulness in, and what's specifically unique to how Hakomi uses mindfulness?
Well, I think, yes, you're right. Mindfulness has become very popular, even in psychotherapy. However, in psychotherapy, people have adopted mindfulness into their method, whatever it is. So normally, a therapist would have trained in some way, and then they add mindfulness to it. And it's often very, very utilitarian. It's just supposed to calm the person down, or to give them more resilience, or to make them more stress resistant. I think that the power of mindfulness is greatly underestimated in this context. If you really, really go back to what the depth of the philosophy behind it is, we're coming into a field that is really different from the field of psychotherapy as it is today. And Hakomi has tried to make mindfulness the basis of everything we do, not an add-on to what we've been doing. No, as a matter of fact, we had to throw out all the techniques that other people had and say they all don't work with mindfulness. Mindfulness, if you really want to have a process where mindfulness is guiding what we're doing, is guiding the process and guiding how we work, we have to find a new toolbox. And that's one of the things that we looked at in the early 80s when we put the method together. It's like, what kind of toolbox do we need? What tools can even work with mindfulness that is so organized around endless curiosity and not about fixing something? And how can we actually help somebody if we're not trying to fix something? What does it mean? How can we understand it? And what is the specific power if you're mindful in every given moment in the therapy, both the therapist and the client? So our approach is actually pretty radical, and much more radical than what is, the common use of mindfulness these days in psychotherapy. It is, we really basically kind of rocking the whole system a little bit about what therapists do, how they want to get to changes, how they relate to their clients, and all those things, and the techniques that they use. They all become really, really different when you look through the lens of mindfulness in its potential depth, not just as a little add-on to make the process a little smoother, or help people to distance themselves from their identifications and their feelings that they're drawn into. So if it can really shape the whole way how we interact, the whole way how we relate to people, and the whole body of technique and process, forms of processes.
I think what you just said is really critical. There's still often the mindset, and there's nothing wrong with it. There's so many beautiful ways of working, obviously, but the mindset of using mindfulness to do something versus being in the mindfulness state and evoking that experience is a very different way of working, which is beautiful how you just phrased that. Mm-hmm.
State is incredibly powerful if it's used right. Mm-hmm. And I really, really appreciate that so many people are embracing mindfulness. Of course, sometimes I go and have a group and I ask people, have you heard about mindfulness? And the next question is, and who of you is totally fed up with mindfulness? And it's become so popular that that people don't really have a chance to understand the revolutionary depth it carries into our culture.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what Hakomi has really adapted.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And has found elegant ways to elicit mindfulness states, right, in which the work then unfolds, which is such a beautiful word that we use in Hakomi, the unfolding process, right?
Yes. Yes, we have all kinds of big and small ways how we slowly infuse the psychotherapeutic process with mindfulness. And it starts with little communication pieces like what we call contacting, and goes to the technique level where we go with an experimental method. And it can go in many ways. The parts language is an important part too. How we constantly build up in the minds of our clients the capacity to observe themselves better and deeper and with more compassion.
Mm-hmm. And with that, bringing the client to its own inherent knowledge or wisdom, right?
Yes, that's a really important part, because mindfulness is curious about how the world is and not like we'd like to have it. We're not screwing around and trying to change little things about reality in the direction how we feel it's great or how it says in the books it should be. But mindfulness is the radical attitude of just staying curious how the world really is. And also when we're sitting across the client, who and what and how the client really is, not like we think he or she should be.
Mm. And that in itself is such an empowering attitude towards the client, right? There is this holistic view of the client itself and their process, and such a deep respect of who they are and who they've been in their life and how they've been shaped through their life. And it's such a respectful way of honoring their process and who they are.
Yeah, I'm just coming from a workshop that I did last week. There's a bunch of students that want to be licensed in psychotherapy. They come out of the universities, go through a process. And I did a demo, and people were shocked about how deeply the client felt seen and appreciated in ways that they have never known before. And people were really touched just by how big, how wide the room of acceptance and loving kindness can be between therapist and student, and or therapist and client.
Thank you.